had either of you seen The Birth of Jesus?
No, I haven't seen The Birth of Jesus.
You weren't there?
I wasn't there. No. What made you bring that up? It looks good.
Because it's like maybe a half hour long short film starring Kirk Cameron as Uncle Kirk. And
all right.
There is a preteen, probably, maybe he's like 13, who wants to go out on Christmas Eve with his cool friend, and they want to go to the mall. But his parents are like, no, stay here. Uncle Kirk will be over any minute, so tell us the Christmas story. And then Kirk Cameron comes over. He reads the Bible. The kid has questions here and there. Kirk has biblically backed answers for everything. The kid accepts all of it.
Yeah.
And then the preteen who had to stay home ends up getting to sing like a falsetto Christmas song, and his friend is like, this is really cool.
Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
This is cool. It sure is.
That's pretty much. And in between, but while I failed to mention that while Kirk's telling the Christmas story, they're showing like Bible timesy stuff of what's happening.
Sure. and then the boy who stays home becomes a eunuch and sings the beautiful castrati soprano anthem.
Basically, pretty much.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's solid. You can watch it on YouTube.
I sure will. Maybe I'll watch it with the family this Christmas season. Should we get into it? There will be a lot to say, I know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. Come on, it's lovely weather for a podcast together with you. I'm Ash. I'm here with
Scott
and Julian.
And it is Christmas, y'all. This is actually coming out on Christmas.
Yeah.
Whoa.
This is our Christmas episode. It's Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone.
What did I get? As you're like scrolling down on the podcast app?
Yeah, which is the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, well, listen, in case you've been living under a freaking rock, it's Christmas out there, everyone. So Merry Christmas to all Boys Bible Study listeners. And, we genuinely hope, no matter what you celebrate, that it is a lovely and peaceful time of year. And celebrating the holiest of Christian feast days, we have one of our all-time favorite films that we've just been dying to cover for the show. And that film brings us back to one of the gleaming saints of Christian film, Kirk Cameron, in his starring role in A Little Piece of Heaven. So nice to finally talk about this one. What an achievement.
Yeah, this was my first time seeing it, and I had forgotten that this is a film that you and Scott are very familiar with.
I had seen it. I'd seen it like 5 or 6 years ago. So I sort of knew what was coming, but I've got to say there were a couple beats in the movie that when it hit, I was like, wow. There was a particular line delivery that I know we'll get to later in the conversation that when it happened, I was like, wow. I was on the plane and watching this and I laughed out loud.
I'm so happy that I don't know which line that is because there's multiple lines.
There are multiple, but there's just one particular line delivery. I think when we get there, it'll be very clear.
And A Little Piece of Heaven was directed by Mimi Leader, who would go on to direct Deep Impact, Pay It Forward, and The Peacemaker, among other things. Yeah. And
wow, what an accomplished director.
Yeah, and her most recent movie was in 2018 called On the Basis of Sex, which is about Young lawyer Ruth Bader Ginsburg teams with her husband Marty to bring a groundbreaking case before the U.S. Court of Appeals and overturn a century of sex discrimination.
Wow.
Huh.
Sounds like we got a bit of a nasty woman on our hands here.
What network did this air on?
Which one? The Ruth Bader Ginsburg one?
Oh, no. I don't care about her. A Little Piece of Heaven.
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Right, because it was straight to, it was made
it's
for
a TV
TV.
movie. Yeah, it says, yep.
It says NBC here. Distributed by NBC.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's so wild.
Well, I mean, Mimi Leader, I know this was like a bit earlier in her career, but I mean, she seems incredibly connected to television. Like, among her credits, I'm noticing that she co-executive produced 40 episodes of ER and also produced and supervising produced 38 episodes of China Beach, which I've never heard of, but it seems like, it was a TV series that ran for several years. Oh, it's a Vietnam War type of show. It ran from the late 80s to the early 90s. So, I mean, this is someone who knows about producing for television.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry, but this movie is so insane.
This movie is insane.
Every time I open a page and read the plot again, I am just so blown away that this aired on television.
It's really crazy.
It wasn't the most Christian movie. It feels like network television secular.
Yeah.
Like Touched by an Angel type stuff, where it's that nobody's quoting Bible verses or anything, but it is overtly Christian.
Yeah,
I agree.
Right? Maybe not overtly, but it's definitely we've talked about it before. Just the idea that everything is just everything back in the 90s and earlier, and even still today to a certain extent, is just generic Christian.
Completely. No,
Right.
I think Touched by an Angel is an excellent point of reference because you're right. It's just Christian. It's definitely overtly Christian, I would say. There's a bunch of references to prayers. There are some sort of moral lessons about God and the way he treats prayer. And other than that, it's mostly just sort of upstanding moral lesson. Well, I mean, to say that with the plot of this movie is insane, but the movie does try to instill these positive moral lessons that are more general than specifically Christian, but I think wrapped up in the Christian elements throughout the film that we could definitely argue it's an overtly Christian one. But man, what a doozy. For real. Where do we begin? I guess with the stars of this film. Kirk Cameron, naturally. And he was where was he in his career? He was Growing Pains was happening at this time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Growing Pains was happening.
Yeah, because he looks great. You know what I mean? He's
he does.
In the prime.
He's he looks like he could play a teenager for TV for sure.
100%. Yeah, he looks great. Really, cute kid, cute young adult. He was 21 at the time that this was made. So,
Perfect.
I mean, he looks great. He looks great. Also, I actually did not realize this piece of trivia, but his co-star Chelsea Noble, who plays Carrie, I did not realize that was his wife.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's
cool.
Also
how you know it's a Christian movie. The love interest is played by your wife.
Yeah.
Or the star's wife.
Yeah, I would assume that they were they married at that point? I don't know. This is something I didn't think to look up because I just learned this fact as we were talking. But it is very, very Christian movie to have a character who not only falls in love with his real life wife in the movie, but also that this character has specifically stated otherwise in the movie that he's not interested in women. There's that part toward the beginning where Kirk Cameron's character Will is complaining about how one of his friends is well, the first time a girl ever hit on him, he didn't want to go bowling anymore. He doesn't understand. He's sort of asexual. He doesn't understand the effect that falling in love or in lust with a woman will have on a man's psyche. But then his wife comes along, or the woman that would become his wife. And in the movie, he's, completely distracted from his criminal enterprise.
His full criminal enterprise.
Yes.
There's somebody else who is, besides Cloris Leachman, somebody else who is a big name in the movie. Did either of you recognize who plays Salem?
Oh man, I burst out laughing when I saw this name show up.
Dude, I know, me too. I silently cheered. Oh my God. And given what occurs later in the movie, it's just so poetic that this actor is here. But we have a very young Jussie Smollett in this film playing the character of Salem Bordeaux. I found it very interesting that a movie about criminal deception, a movie about psychic terrorism and criminal deception, starred a young Jussie Smollett. I thought that there was something, sometimes casting, it tells a story in itself. And
he should have used this movie in court to get out of it. He should have been like, "This is what what I was put through as a child."
Or he should have used the defense that they use at the end of the movie to get Kirk Cameron's character out of jail by being like, "Listen, Judge, he's a pretty cool guy."
He says, that was one of my favorite lines where he said, I know real criminals. This guy isn't a criminal. He said, what does he say? He describes him as like a homeboy.
I come from a neighborhood where lots of people were breaking the law. And I know some real criminals. This guy, he's kind of weird and goofy. You know what I mean. But he ain't no criminal. Will is, well, he's a proper homeboy.
He's a real homeboy.
He's a real homeboy. Yeah.
I wrote that down. He's a real homeboy.
Woo.
Yeah, I wish
there's a lot of that in this movie.
Kirk Cameron should have returned the favor in the future and stood up and interrupted Jussie Smollett's real life court proceedings to declare that Jussie was a real homeboy and should not go to prison. Yeah, well, not to put the cart before the horse here, but
I don't think we gave away the main thing yet.
No, we didn't. Much to come for anyone who hasn't seen this film.
But there's a lot. One thing, one of the other main characters in this is Kirk's sister. I thought she sort of looked familiar, but I don't.
I didn't recognize her.
Did y'all recognize her from anything?
No, not at all. No. She was good.
I don't know
she was
about
good
that.
I mean,
yeah,
good. She was tasked with the role of playing a disabled person.
What's wrong with you, man? You retarded?
No, he's my brother, and I'm developmentally disabled.
That's a retard.
Developmentally disabled young woman.
Yeah.
Which, you're just being set up to fail. If that's, you got to talk to your agent if you show up on set and that's the role.
But people loved that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is 91 we're talking about. Like, that was like what you did.
Like to get an award. Yeah. Yeah. It's like
sure.
Tropic Thunder.
Or just like anything. Because this is the era. And now, granted, she's not the main character of the film, but she's, pretty close. She's right in the forefront, in the whole action. And I mean, as you know, Julian, because this is a genre specialty of yours, but this is the era. This is the era of the Magic Man movie.
Oh yeah,
which
I thought you were
not
say a different kind of genre that I like. I was like, don't say that's my specialty.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put that on you. I didn't know what I was saying. Julian does not only watch movies about disabled people; he also watches movies about normal people too.
Yeah, and Magic Men. Yeah,
and Magic Men. Well, the thing is, to me, the Magic Man movie, of which I would put, Julian's all-time favorite movie, Powder, in this category, is that there's something about these men. They're not exactly disabled, but they kind of are, because like They're coded with like they do things in a way that we can't understand.
They're super powered.
They're super they're
supercharged. Yeah.
Yeah, they're supercharged, but they don't understand like certain social behaviors. They're outsiders. A lot of times people are kind of looking at them with bewilderment and wonder, and they sort of like speak the truth in a way that we can't understand because we're so wrapped up in like our social lives. And that's the way a lot of times that like, you know, intellectually disabled people are coded in movies like this one.
People often want to hate them or kill them because they're so pure.
Right. Exactly. And you know,
The Whale is a Magic Man movie.
Really?
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the movie. I'm not going to see the movie because I don't care. But other than the fact that you said it was really funny, so that does kind of make me want to see it.
Yeah,
but,
you should see it.
But is he like actually magic, or is it like a movie set somewhat in reality?
Nah, he's just like the nicest guy that ever lived.
Right.
And you know, you could fit about 3 magic men in that freaking fat suit.
Yeah.
Completely tasteless movie.
Yeah,
Any
that
jokes
sounds...
I could make about that movie are pale in comparison to how fat phobic the movie actually is.
You know, Brendan Fraser's character in The Whale has a really magnetic personality, or actually that might just be because he's so big, his gravitational pull is kind of just you know.
Well, you know, it's actually very, very sad. There's a scene where he has to go through he has to take a shower, and they have to drive him to the car wash for him to do it. And you know how he's like reconnecting with his estranged daughter because they had a big falling out because when she was a kid, she was watching television, and he walked in front of the TV and she missed 3 episodes.
Yeah.
It's a very, very sad movie.
It's a sad movie.
How would this movie pair with Fat Chance?
Pretty well. I think Fat Chance was actually a lot better.
Yeah, which one was a lot more tasteful? Okay.
Yeah, Fat Chance, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was. You know, Fat Chance, looking back at it, it's not the problems with that movie wasn't that it was distasteful with regards to like fat people. If I remember correctly. Like it wasn't like, you know, like they played like boing sound effects when, you know, she walked everywhere or whatever, but she was wearing a fat suit in the movie. If you remember.
It was the fat suit that was like on backwards half the time.
Right. Yeah, they did a bad job with the fat suit.
Yeah.
So, you know, it wasn't perfect, but probably better than The Whale from what I hear about it.
Yeah.
Jenny Robertson as Violet Loomis, Will's sister, Kirk Cameron's character, Will Loomis's sister. And we mentioned her name before, but Cloris Leachman does play Ed, which is short for Edwina. And she's the kindly, sort of, you know, what's the word? Not exactly eccentric, but, you know, she has her own sort of common sense. Like when she tells the little girl at her orphanage, if like a boy bothers her again, to say like, I'll rip off your head and spit down your neck.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was funny. So, you know, she has her own kind of like folksy wisdom. And she runs the orphanage that Kirk Cameron's character grew up in. And now he, as an older teen, I think he's supposed to be like 17 in this movie. As an older teen, he helps out with still. He's still connected to the orphanage. So this is A Little Piece of Heaven. And our story begins. How should we start? My notes say Kirk Cameron, Cloris Leachman, Jussie Smollett with like 6 exclamation points. So that's the frame of mind I was in when I was watching people be introduced.
I think it's worth starting with just what we were saying with Jenny Robertson's character Violet playing the developmentally disabled person in a time where that was like a prestige move to do that.
Yes.
I hadn't remembered the prominence of that in this movie from before.
Yeah, me too. It's
peculiar how the degree to which she is developmentally disabled seems to fluctuate depending on what the story needs from her character.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. It's also funny that her an actress playing a disabled person is like the 10th most consequential thing about this movie, like plot wise. Like it's like she, like the fact that that's such a crazy move in itself is completely overshadowed by everything else in this movie. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. It's her character is very convenient with how she interfaces
like later
with the worlds.
on when just like, you know, the story gets so convoluted and she's wrapped up in this web of lies. There is a scene where she essentially is just speaking like a fully functional person and is just like, me think this is a bad idea because me don't want to lie anymore. just like doing the bare minimum to continue playing a developmentally disabled person.
Yeah. It's interesting the way they portray her disability in the film. They refer to it as her age getting stuck.
Yeah, that's how she refers to it.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess the central premise of the way that they are measuring disability or talking about it is that like someone, you know, she's basically like stuck as a perma little kid forever, and that's her perception of the world. Like she understands that she's at odds with her body. Like early on in the movie, she prays to God. She says, and you know, if you would unstick my age, then I could help Will more.
And God, I could help Will more if you would unstick my age.
Like, the character being like, damn, if I just wasn't so developmentally disabled, I could do something right now. Damn this brain.
Pretty cool.
But her starting point for problem solving is like the same as for us still.
Yeah.
Right. You know, yeah, she's very pure at heart. She prays a lot, and Will is like the perfect caretaker of her. Like when his adopted parents die at the beginning of the movie, Will and Violet's wait, I guess Violet, they were her biological parents.
Yes. But I think somewhere in the movie it says that they were told that if they were to have a child, this would happen, basically.
Yeah.
And they adopted, and then they had a kid. And then...
Right.
Yeah.
But
they're pretty old.
When the movie... Yeah.
They're pretty old, so they basically die of old age.
Yeah, they both die of old age. The mother has passed away in this story before the movie begins, and Cecil Loomis, their father, Will's adoptive father, dies very early on in the movie. At his funeral service, this isn't exactly a funny line, but there was something about it. The preacher says, "The world didn't turn out fair, so God made Cecil Loomis." There's something about
God
that.
Just make the world fair.
I believe God tried to make a fair world, but the forces of evil were so strong and so many. God had to make something else. God made good people. The world didn't turn out fair, so God made Cecil Loomis to raise a son who was not his own at birth, to raise a daughter different from the rest of us.
Wow.
And then God killed him. Or then the world killed him.
God struck him down. That's the best idea God could think of. Because God doesn't have anybody to pray to for answers.
That's right.
God just has to come up with the shit on her own.
Yeah.
And you know, that was the best best solution to all
maybe the
problems in
flood was a
world.
little much. I'll design Cecil Loomis.
Yeah. You couldn't do another Jesus? You couldn't do another Jesus Christ?
Too crazy.
Yeah.
No, we'll just do like the next best thing. We'll do a Cecil Loomis. Cecil's thing in raising his kids is that he reads them history books while they like ride on exercise bikes.
Yeah.
Which I actually thought was kind of cool. I was like, I could see some right-wing bodybuilder type on Twitter telling you that that's what you need to do. Like read about the War of 1812 while
Have
you're
your
doing
geriatric
cardio.
grandpa read.
Yeah. Work out your brain while you work out your body.
Yeah, there's something there. But Cecil Loomis unfortunately passes away, leaving Kirk Cameron as Will Loomis, the default caretaker of his sister Violet. He also has to single-handedly work the pig farm on which they live. And he supplements that by doing odd jobs at Hamlin House, which is the orphanage where Will was adopted from. And, is by the way it's portrayed in the story, a very pleasant place, a relatively pleasant place. If you're going to be an orphan, you might as well be it at the Hamlin House. That's all I'm saying. Hell, I'm thinking about becoming an orphan just so I can go there myself.
Well, you can't anymore because the Hamlin House lost funding or something.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
who was president at this time? Clinton?
Clinton. Yeah. It was the first thing he cut was funding to the Hamlin House in favor of, I don't know, blowjobs, maybe?
It's weird that the budget for blowjobs went up during his term. I found that very strange.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was something happening.
Remember, too, after the funding got cut for Hamlin House, he had a shiny new saxophone the next day. I thought that was odd.
Very odd. Conspicuously had a shiny new saxophone. I did notice that. Well, I trust politicians. It's very complicated, their job. There's so much going on that I couldn't even begin to understand. So I assume he had a plan that incorporated all of that. But Hamlin House, which is run by Cloris Leachman's character Edwina, is losing its funding. And that means that all of the kids currently placed at the house are going to move to the Braskin facility, which Ed describes as a hellhole.
Yeah. I believe it's only referred to as a hellhole after the first mention of it.
Yes. Yeah, once they introduce the proper name, they just call it and the kids are going to have to go to that hellhole. Meanwhile, I don't know. Ed is, throughout this movie, we are going to investigate what is the correct way to raise children. But a recurring theme of this movie is that basically a well-meaning person who does everything wrong is more fit to raise kids than any kind of system put in place by the government or by a body that is somewhat removed from the kids on the ground. Because Hamlin House gets that worker, I can't remember her name because honestly she's not that important, but that the bureaucrat who goes to help the kids make the transition to the new facility.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought it felt so much like they were setting that up to be the romantic interest.
Yeah, except she wasn't. I hate to say this but I think the casting was kind of intentional, or the styling was intentional, because it was clear the actress is a beautiful woman, but she wasn't pure and pretty enough looking to be the love interest. Yeah,
I did think that she didn't look like what at that time would have been that's the love interest.
Exactly. Yeah,
but she was introduced way before the love interest.
Right.
Way before. And there was a weird wasn't flirtation or meet cute thing, but there was something similar to that going on when Kirk Cameron and this bureaucrat met, where I thought it was going to be a thing where he shows her how important Hamlin House is, and they're gonna figure out how to save it. Was not expecting what actually happened, which this female character just disappears essentially after she's introduced.
Yes. And it's funny, the love interest is pretty much an afterthought in my opinion. I mean, did she really need to be in the film?
Not at all.
No. Like she's thrown in at the end. Oh God. Like the movie would have been like just fine without her. I mean, I guess, again, they want to show how Kirk's character Will is like on the cusp of becoming a man. Again, I do think that there is this like ongoing theme in the film about what it means to grow up and start a family. There's several references in the movie to people trying to be grown-ups too early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Kirk in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't understand why his friend would rather hang out with a girl than him. At the end of the movie, he has such a girl. So I think that it was important for that reason, but it's funny at the end of the movie when his love interest is like all of a sudden there with them on the adventure running away from the FBI, spoiler alert. And it's like, why is she there? Like, why?
Yeah.
They barely even know her. Why would she like join this criminal enterprise that he is running?
Yeah.
I was with
Any
Violet
sense.
when she was flipping out about her showing up. I too was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such
Bitch, get the fuck out of here.
very, very common trope in Christian movies of just no matter what this person acts like, no matter what this man, almost exclusively a man,
Right.
no matter what this man is acting like or doing, because he says, I am a good Christian, he is the main character and everybody roots for him.
Absolutely.
No
Yes.
matter what horrible crimes he is committing
I think more
or
than
how
anything
much
else,
he is traumatizing everyone around him.
I think more than anything else, that's what makes this a Christian movie. Like, even if they said less about prayer and God, like every beat in this movie is of a Christian movie, especially in that specific regard. Like, that's a trope we've seen time and time again, and it's executed like to its pinnacle in this movie.
He makes these insane decisions throughout, and you're just supposed to have like the most positive thought. Like, you just know he has the best intentions the whole time. You are supposed to have just know that
Things
he
that would
was doing his best.
Yeah, actions that would be like could just be translated 1-to-1 into a horror movie.
Yes.
Are played as if you are supposed to be, oh, this is so cute and charming. What a good soul.
It's actually a lot like the movie Overboard. Like, if you just read like the first 3/4 of either script, you'd be like, so how is this played? So this is like a thriller or like a horror or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we've been kind of dancing around it, but I think it might be time to introduce the real main attraction plot wise of this film. I'll get us there by just setting up that a couple small things happen that set up the long running final action of the film. These things are as follows. One, Will's sister Violet gets prescribed these powerful sedatives that Will is supposed to use to, sedate her if she has like some sort of episode where she flips out. Basically, if she gets mad about anything, she's supposed to shove this like powerful tranquilizer in her mouth and just knock her out. Very cool. Secondly, the Hamlin house, they found out they're getting a new orphan, even though the house is just weeks away from closing down and having to send all the kids to the hellhole, which the thought of this upsets Will. Thirdly, when Will is in, a pharmacy, wherever the fuck he is, he witnesses a little girl being slapped in the face by her mom, which is very, very upsetting to him. With that in mind, what happens when Will finds out about the new orphan Salem, played by Jussie Smollett, being introduced to the Hamlin house?
Well, before the first act takes place, he is listening to Violet tell him how much she wishes she had a sibling, preferably a sister, and how much she misses Pawpaw and Mama, and how she wants to go to heaven so she can see them.
Yeah.
So these things are swirling in Kirk's mind, and he uses the sedatives that have been prescribed for Violet and drugs Salem.
The scene where they start, like, you can sort of see a little bit where the film is going, and you're already starting to get a little bit horrified. Like, wait, like, is he gonna like start kidnapping kids? And then the next thing is, now mind you, he hasn't seen Salem yet. He's just looked at his file. He's heard that this kid is coming.
He looks through the file, and twice he's like, "Wow, you're skinny."
I know. He's like a fucking he's shopping for a kid in the Wayfair furniture catalog or something.
Yeah.
You know? And he's and so he gets like a piece of cake or something, and that's when it cuts to him. Like, you can tell he's formulating a plan, but you don't know what that is yet. The first action you see that hints at his plan is him sprinkling ground up bright blue sedatives into a piece of cake. And you're like, holy fuck. Like, something terrible is afoot. And then this is the young man that we are rooting for. This movie plays all the musical cues in just the right places when Violet's like, God, I wish I could go to heaven. Like, the next thing we see is Will sprinkling ground up sedatives into a dessert. Pretty awesome.
So crazy. And the one of the best reveals is when he sneaks into Salem's bedroom.
The drug Salem, mind you.
Drug Salem.
This is after he's created a stir so that there's no other kids around.
Correct.
Right. He pulls the blanket off of Salem and sees that he is a young black child and says, he's black.
He's black? No, actually, it's funny because Elvis movie jokes aside, Elvis movie jokes aside, the way that he actually says it in the film is so fucking funny. He goes,
You're black.
And he basically says, oh, this is going to be way more complicated than I thought.
He does, because he immediately qualifies it with, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but, you know, I was going to tell people you were my long lost cousin or something.
I love him like talking, rationalizing it with the drugged child.
Yeah.
Like, he's speaking to a drugged child.
Yeah. And he's like, but I did promise Violet, and I said honor bright. So he's literally, justifying, why he's, why to an unconscious child, why he's about to, just drag him away from the orphanage where he's been placed in.
It's just that I could give you a good home, and Edwina said that you're going to be transferred to some terrible place. And I promised Violet, I said honor bright. It's fine that you're black.
So the descent has already started. Kirk Cameron as Will has already kidnapped a kid, drugged and kidnapped a kid. To make things worse, once Salem is within Will's custody, Will immediately starts telling him that he has died and gone to heaven, and that Will and Violet are dead. They are angels.
Also important to know that Salem is written by, I think, Tucker Carlson, I would say.
Oh my God. The multiple dynamics of, one, we've just seen Will kidnap a child. Two, he's now telling this child that he's dead. And three, the responses of Salem saying things such as,
Salem Bordeaux, allow me to introduce myself.
Hey, bro, you cool whoever you are. Unless you the one that stole my cards.
meaning his like baseball cards. Also at one point, Will references the pigs, like he works on a pig farm, and Salem goes, "The cops are here."
It's so insane. This kid is
so
supposed to be like
fucking funny.
8 years
Like
old.
9,
too.
yeah, like 8 or 9 years old. Oh my god!
And when
so
they tell him you died
fucking
and now you're
funny.
in heaven, he says,
You're dead. And now you're in heaven.
Say what?
Oh,
So insane.
At one point, he says, another, being told he's in heaven. He says, "Hey, I can dig that, but where's the other African Americans, like Dr. Martin Luther King?"
That line was pretty funny.
That was actually kind of funny. But I love when he's like, "Hey, I can dig that, man."
I have newfound sympathy for Jussie Smollett after watching him have to do this as a child.
right?
Yeah, maybe
I was like, well, totally understands you are not a well-adjusted adult.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
maybe the hate crime he faked was just like manifesting the hate crime that he had gone through and having to make this movie.
Yeah, really. I mean, honestly, maybe. Oh, I really like that since Kirk Cameron just pulled this idea like out of his ass at the last second to say that, oh, you died and went to heaven. His reason for why he died was pretty good too. And
Yes.
then Violet had to come up with one too. And
Right.
his was that he died in a bank robbery shootout, which is like a very, I mean, even at 17, that's a little old to make that up.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
for Violet, she says she ate so much she exploded.
That's really funny.
He stresses that he was an innocent bystander in the bank robbery. Too.
Right, yeah, he wasn't the bank robber.
So how'd you die?
Me? Well, I was shot in a bank robbery. In the head. I was an innocent bystander.
What about you?
I ate too much and I blew up.
And, Violet's is really interesting because that predates Darren Aronofsky's The Whale, where the same thing happens.
Yeah, well, don't spoil it for people.
Sorry about that. My bad.
He does explode, though.
This whole time, Will is doing things like, like he'll be like, "I don't know who you is," and Will will be like, "Who you are."
Yes.
God damn.
Constantly correcting his grammar. And his sister does it too.
This is not hell, and I am not the devil. It's your move.
Then how come I saw a pig from wearing this? There ain't no black people nowhere.
Anywhere.
It's so funny. Yeah.
In heaven.
In heaven.
Supposed to be in heaven.
In heaven. That's enough. That's already a lot to handle. Will has a new charge in Salem who, I don't think Will expected this to be easy, but when Salem asks a lot of questions and is, ready to run away or, just doesn't take the whole heaven thing as seriously as he would as a devout Christian, as if that alone couldn't get any more complicated. Violet really wants a sister. And she basically pulls an ultimatum that she will not play heaven anymore unless Will gets her a sister. So we go in yet deeper. Will does an act to get Hazel, which I wrote in my notes. This is some real John Wayne Gacy type shit.
Really insane. And to emphasize Violet's need for another girl in her life at dinner before Kirk performs his next crime. They're praying and he says, "Amen." And she says, "A woman."
Amen.
A woman.
A woman. That sounds like a Julian Boys Bible Study joke, honestly.
I was a little jealous
Yeah, that you
when I
did.
saw that happen in the movie.
They did one in the 90s. Yeah, she wants someone she can relate to. She wants a sister, someone to be on her team. And so Will tracks down the young girl that he observed getting abused in the supermarket.
And this sequence begins with Kirk dressed up as an angel in the woods in the dark at night, praying to God that he'll help him kidnap one more child.
God, it's Will. I just want to say that I really appreciate how smooth the other night went. But Salem needs a lot more attention than I thought he would. And Violet's not really adjusting to him too well. So I'm gonna need one more. And I promise this will be the last one. And I'll raise them right, and when they're old enough, I'll tell them the truth, and I'll send them on their way. All right? So please, if you would promise to help me with just this one, it would help Violet. Amen.
He's like, please just make this one easy like the last one. Like, that's like truly what he's praying for. He's like, just, the last one was like so uncomplicated. Like, just do this one. Literally like doing the thing where it's literally like the movie It. It's like, why don't you come over here? Like, I have a balloon. Like, I'm an angel. Like, it's like straight up is like the movie It. Hazel is lured out of her window. She tells Kirk Cameron that she would like her name in heaven to be Princess. And so she just goes along with Will, and now she's a part of the family.
And when Will brings her back to the farmhouse, there is now a huge sign set up in Christmas lights that says heaven.
Imagine being in that town where while this is parallel to this happening, the FBI has taken an interest in the case, because Edwina, actually not realizing that her star pupil Will is involved, she's reported this as a kidnapping even before other people think it could be a kidnapping. But imagine you're the FBI and you're working in a very small town where now 2 kids have gone missing, and then on one random like abandoned pig farm overnight, a giant sign goes up that says heaven. I don't know. Something, this movie, a lot of this movie is about going with your gut, and just something in my gut would tell me, I would think that there's something going on there. But
in fact, even Edwina says that.
Right.
She says she doesn't trust the brain. She goes by her gut.
The human brain, yours, mine, or anyone else's for that matter, is a highly overrated organ. I go by my gut.
Yes. Yep. So this is a huge theme in the movie. And, I think like, although there's still some plot to go, like, I think this would be a nice time to discuss this because like, we've now seen the level that this movie takes it with the plot, and we see how much we're supposed to co-sign Will's behavior here, even though we understand on some level that it's wrong. We're supposed to see it, I think, at worst as like whimsical.
Yes.
And this is the whole thing. Like the movie says, and especially with regards to how you treat children and how you raise children, what this movie says over and over again is that if you believe that you are acting in a child's best interest, then you are. And that justifies every insane abusive thing that you do to them.
Yeah. I mean, isn't this like just, the justification for all the grievances so many Christians have against the U.S. government and law enforcement? Is that, I was acting in my own best judgment. And I don't know. This movie's so fucking insane.
I think it's more like Kirk Cameron's super pro homeschool. He was in that newer documentary recently made by the same guy who did Connect.
Right.
And so I think it's like that kind of movement of like I think it tracks that he's saying we like what we see more of now, like the government shouldn't make the decision because clearly I can make the best decision because they can't even keep their building open.
Yeah, I feel like this was like a thriller that just like I feel like somebody wrote a thriller that got turned into like this family-friendly made-for-TV movie.
Yeah.
When did Silence of the Lambs come out?
a couple different cuts and like different music would go a long way for what's already there, because it's pretty competently directed.
Yeah, I mean, Silence of the Lambs came out the same year. And I feel like this could have been like a movie like that in that same vein.
That would be a funny double feature to watch Silence of the Lambs first, because you'd be like, what's going to happen to the kids?
So this kid, it totally could have been, because Silence of the Lambs came out in January of 1991, and this came out in December 1991. So that's more than enough time to like be like, oh, let's got the script to be like, yeah, let's turn this script like through all the different channels of like approval and executive notes. Like somehow this movie that was supposed to be like sort of a knockoff Silence of the Lambs gets turned into a family-friendly made-for-TV movie.
Well, before I want to just pick up the thread that you had just said before a little more, Julian, because I think it's super important, which is that like the fact that, so the weird thing politically about this movie is that I don't think that this is really like a conservative film, even though we now equate like the modern conservative movement with this sort of like libertarian ideology, specifically with regards to parenting, like homeschooling, and just the fact that like the government is being very insidious with the way that they treat children. And that, and this comes up in many ways, the current very contemporary preoccupation with like grooming and gay ideology and trans ideology, like that all falls under the same umbrella. But I don't think that was Mimi Leder's intention. I mean, she would go on to make a Ruth Bader Ginsburg film, which feels very like, lib in a way. I would assume she's like a Hollywood lib. But what I'm trying to say is like, I do think that decades ahead of its time, this movie like absolutely represents like the libertarian child rearing ideal,
Yeah, or at least like the failings of, the foster system.
Yes. And the failings of the foster system and the failings of government oversight, specifically with regards to how they treat kids.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's super, super important. There's a couple, like they'll cut to different newscasts and they'll say things like, every 13 seconds, a child is beaten, sexually molested, or abused by parents or caretakers. So that means that instead of going to a government-provided orphanage, the kid should live at like a chaotic like house run by an old lady, but she's nice. Or they should be drugged and kidnapped and living at a pig farm with a Christian.
This is the solution. Yeah. So many of these like fake Christian solutions are just like, just put a nice person in charge of it.
Exactly.
Do the same thing, but nice.
Right. And it also just goes to show like how, again, so if acting in good intentions is the correct way to raise children, I mean, everyone thinks they're acting in good intentions. The government thinks they're acting in good intentions. And like, of course, like bad things happen, things slip through the cracks, oversight or, lack of oversight or, failures of people they put in charge mean that government programs fail people, a lot of the time, even though they're usually put in place by people with good intentions. Meanwhile, if you're like so opposed to those things that you're withdrawing your children from all kinds of school, and I don't know, the parents that think that instead of taking their kids to the doctor, they should just rub essential oils on them, like those parents think that they're acting with good intentions.
Yeah.
So who's right?
I mean, well, the alternative is you have your lib parents that are giving their children seed oils.
Right. Seed oils and gender confirmation surgery.
Yeah, and litter boxes.
But I do think, I don't know, it's funny to watch this movie right now with the current discourse, which I feel like kids are more and more in the news. It's probably always been this way, But I really feel it now. I feel like there's so much preoccupation with, in quotes, keeping the kids safe.
Yeah.
That it's turned a corner to the point where it's very warped and unhealthy. Like this fixation with the safety of kids has like dialed over into like the abuse of kids.
Oh yeah.
Like to the point where they're doing QAnon shit, looking through like Balenciaga advertisements. And you know, like it's all very perverse. Like honestly on multiple sides, but I think you know, especially on the conservative side, like, you know, people bringing guns to fucking drag queen story hours and shit like that. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like, you know, not to like take a political stand. I'm not a big fan of like the libs of TikTok type people who go on TikTok and are like, I'm happy that like you know, all of these 9-year-olds are telling me that they're gay or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you just like shouldn't make TikToks about your school. That being said, the fact that like there's the other side who's like, I'm going to bring guns to drag queen story hour. It's like you're not protecting the kids. Right. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like that's so fucked up and warped and unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is worse for a child, to be read a story from a person in drag, which is a concept that a child probably does not even understand.
Right.
Or shooting someone to death in front of them.
True, yes. Or just being menacing instead in general.
Yeah. I completely
instead
understand.
Of like an education versus just being menacing. Being like, I don't like that type of education. I'm going to come be menacing. So you can think about how menacing people can be instead.
Yeah.
Exactly. No,
that's at minimum what they want. That's obvious. That's why they're going to do that.
Right. It's very exactly. And that is something a child understands.
Yeah.
You don't have to, even if they don't know exactly what's happening, a child can pick up when someone is being threatening and menacing. Yeah. And it's very scary. So, you know, it's all very, very bizarre.
So that's why you have to lie to them. Use the spoonful of sugar technique. Tell them they died and went to heaven. Say, look, your appendix burst, but it didn't hurt, and you died and went to heaven.
Right. And now you live with me on the pig farm. Well,
and some of the pigs get sick. Yeah, the great pig farm in the sky. And sometimes the pigs can get sick. And don't ask why there's disease in heaven. I hadn't thought of that far yet.
The starlings are the birds that nest on the rafters in the barn. All right? Now, what do the starlings carry?
A disease.
Right.
Hey, how come there's disease in heaven?
Well, no place is perfect. Okay? Now, listen. If the pigs drink the water that's infected by the starlings, then the pigs die.
There's already in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the part? He says that the angels have... What was the disease?
Angel measles?
Angel measles.
They're angels' measles. You can't see them and they don't itch.
Then why we gotta
Because they're very contagious.
This is such an insane movie.
I know.
I mean, it's basically like Dogtooth or...
Christian Dogtooth, yeah.
What's the 22-23 Cloverfield Lane or whatever?
I never saw that one.
Yeah, me either.
Just another captivity movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm looking through my notes. Like, literally, Will being like having a scene where he's like, oh, God, we need to disconnect all these phones. We can't have them know that there's phones in the house.
See, it's all these things that make me think whoever wrote this movie was trying to write a very scary movie.
I really like that theory.
Yeah.
I didn't quite think about it.
It just got turned into something else because, like, there's just none of this is funny.
No.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny that they're trying to make it lighthearted.
Yeah, the execution and delivery of it is very funny.
I don't see how you could see, like, this movie is either funny and how ridiculous it is, even though it's not trying to be, but I feel like you could make this movie as like an insane comedy.
Right.
Or it is really scary. And it is definitely not, like, I don't see how you could watch this and be like, oh, this is so sweet.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
He told the kids they were dead.
That's so scary.
He told the kid he died in a fire.
You know, one... This kind of relates, but I just saw it in my notes, and I really want to make sure we nail this scene. But I think it kind of relates to just being like, how is this movie sweet? Which is where Salem and Will start to have sort of a frank conversation about God and the power of prayer. And Salem, in kind of his like streetwise, like material thinking way, says, I used to pray to God for a leather jacket or even small things like donuts, and he never once answered my prayers. And Will looks at him and said, God did answer your prayers, and he said no. And that's the end of the scene.
Hey, you're a kidnapper.
I saved your life. I kept you from being sent to a horrible place. And I tried to give you a home and a family. And I screwed up. But I am not a kidnapper.
I knew this wasn't heaven. Didn't say nothing because you took it so serious. I don't even believe in no God. I used to pray all the time. I prayed for a car. I prayed for that leather jacket I was telling you about with the fur collar. Hell, I even prayed for little stuff, like donuts. And God never once answered my prayers.
Of course God answered your prayers, Salem. He said no.
That's so crazy. Like, what's the lesson we're trying to tell here?
Yeah, I thought that one was a very bizarre Christian message, because it's like, no, God doesn't always answer very specific material prayers. It's not like it's not witchcraft. Prayer. It's not like you can summon something by invoking it. But the fact that we've just had a watched like at least 45 minutes by this point of like Will holding kids captive, and then him telling a kid, "Oh, God answers all the prayers. He just said no to yours." I found extremely sinister.
But what was further sinister to me was just that Salem's character, that would be what he was praying about. Like, they don't give him any like emotional background to like what he's been going through in his life.
That's so true.
Like, there's when I first saw it, I assumed that he would be saying, I prayed for like God to like bring my mom back, or like something like emotionally deep or meaningful that would affect a kid. And no, it's just like this, like, you didn't give me my car.
That's so true. You know what's funny? I got so swept up in like the other insane shit of the movie, I didn't really think about how insane that was. Because earlier in the film, they're like, oh yeah, I might be getting this slightly wrong, but they said at least one of his parents was on crack. Like, imagine how traumatic that would be.
Yeah.
Both your parents out of the picture, at least one of them is a drug addict. But yeah, you're right. It's like, hey, God, give me some donuts. It's crazy that they just like made Jussie Smollett play this little like black kid who he says you is instead of you are. So he's like, this kid's annoying. Yeah.
The white characters always correct him when he says stuff like that.
And he doesn't know how to pray right. The only thing he wants in life is, as you said, like a car or whatever. Like there's nothing further that he wants out of life.
Right.
He is not a person, essentially.
They make him sharp enough to poke holes in Will's crazy scheme that he's just like going along with by the seat of his pants, just like coming up with wild new things that he now has to live by left and right.
Right. They make him smart enough to contemplate that, but not even a remote drop of like a remote degree or like a tiny drop of depthness to self-reflect and be like, I wish I had a family too. Like, we don't even get that.
Right.
It's really strange. Well, at this point in the movie, Will and Violet and Salem and Hazel, aka Princess, are basically on the run. It seems through some sort of like Christian Stockholm syndrome that the little kids are pretty into it. And a couple things happen. The order doesn't really matter as much for our review, but a couple things happen. At one point, the FBI agent, whose name is Jack Daniels, by the way, his name is Jack Daniels, and Edwina was like, "Oh, that's funny. That was also my husband's name." So
Yeah,
there's
she says,
multiple
good
people.
name.
Good name.
And then
that was
he's like, huh? And she's like, Jack. No, nothing.
not yeah.
He's calling no attention to Jack Daniels being his name.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, my name is Adolf Hitler. That's a good name.
Oh yeah, Adolf.
Yeah.
That was
my husband's name was Adolf.
Well, at one point the FBI, Edwina is questioning why they start to suspect Will's involvement. And Edwina's like, it just can't be him. And the FBI agent says like,
he's a sickie. He kidnaps children. We've heard of guys like him. He has friends. He's nice to his neighbors. Maybe he even has a dog. Then one day they find weird pictures in the basement of bodies buried in the backyard, but they don't find him. No, he's killed himself after he's opened fire on a schoolyard full of children.
Is it illegal to have weird pictures?
Do not go through my Tumblr. Okay. Guys, come on, get your mind out of the gutter. I just mean deep fried memes from 2015, y'all.
And stills of Amelie.
Yeah. That happens. Will's love interest joins the group for some reason while they're on the run.
Yeah.
And Will finds a letter from his birth mother, which his love interest is reading to him while they're in the hotel hiding from the FBI, which I thought that was a very Freudian moment, a very loaded moment to have the girl you just met a week ago reading in the voice of your birth mother, who was like 13 and pregnant when she was writing this.
And blind.
Yes.
She's blind.
She's blind. Kirk Cameron's character's mother was 13 when she got pregnant, and she's also a blind woman. The way that she phrases this in the note is that this is in regards to having sex. She says, "One night we tried to be grown-ups, but it didn't work too good because I got pregnant."
Jared and me got to be friends, and one night we tried to be grown-ups, but I guess it did not work too good because I got pregnant.
The writing in this movie for people who are the 13-year-old is the same as the developmentally disabled person.
Yes, that's interesting.
Yeah. And the black character is just insane sounding.
Just
like, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe they were like, depth. There's no way we can make this into a thriller and have it be like respected when they start reading some of this dialogue.
Yeah, but the fact that they didn't, instead of pivoting to comedy, they pivoted to inspirational is very bold.
What if, because Kirk Cameron was a hot ticket at the time, they're like, Kirk, we have a few scripts. Tell us which one you want to do. And then he just had this inspirational take on it where they were like, wait, what? That's what you get out of it? He's like, yeah, of course. They're like, okay, we'll do that.
I don't know this for a fact. Someone might have to fact check me on this, but I feel like I remember hearing Kirk say that even when he was young, he wanted to do things that were more wholesome.
Yeah.
Christian. Like that was important to him as a young Christian in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, I don't know how much creative control they gave the kid, but like, I wonder if he had something to say, like, I'll do this script, but it has to be a Christian movie. I don't really know.
Yeah. It has to be wholesome.
Totally speculating.
Like, but you kidnap kids. And he's like, just like blinks at them.
What if they want to go to heaven?
He's like, yeah, but I would be kidnapping the kids. It would be me kidnapping the kids. So, it's fine.
He definitely just read a character being like, oh, you're in heaven now. And he was like, this is great.
Yeah. A little piece of heaven. That's right there in the title. It's what you see on the tin.
They should make a sequel to A Little Piece of Heaven that's also a sequel to Pieces called Pieces of Heaven. And then that would be a horror thriller.
What's Pieces?
It's like kind of like famous cult slasher movie. It's pretty dark and gory. Yeah.
Pieces of heaven. Pieces of heaven. You know, the cops eventually close in on Will and the gang. They all leave the motel where they're hiding out with their hands up. And Salem says something to the effect of, if they want to take us, they're going to have to take us as a family. Which is, I love that in these movies. Like, it seems like at the final moment that everyone actually loves each other. Like, they were sort of like, not bickering exactly, but, the whole time they're like, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do this? And at the last moment, it's like, you know what? We're a family, y'all.
Yeah. I've known you for 4 days.
Yeah. Most of those days
but you're
you were
my
making
father.
me. Most of those days you were making me shoot birds in the barn as a chore.
It was the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
You're the least psychotic parent I've had.
Yeah. And I think really, there could be something else, but I think really the final big thing plot-wise to mention is that after they're arrested, Kirk Cameron's character Will is in a hearing, and for some reason everyone involved in the story is all there in the room with the judge. I don't understand how court works, but I kind of feel like it's not like that. And the judge is about to pass down a jail sentence. He says, to pay your crime, you will serve a jail sentence of... And the kids start interjecting. Salem says, I come from a neighborhood where lots of people be breaking the law. I know some real criminals, but he ain't no criminal. He's a proper homeboy. So.
Yep. That's all the judge needed to hear.
Right.
What was his sentence? He was sentenced to run an orphanage.
Yes. To carry on as he has been, but with the full support of the town.
And the state. Yes. His punishment for drugging and kidnapping kids was you have to spend more time around kids. You have to care for as many kids as we can give you.
Yeah. In his home, in his normal house.
Right.
Yes.
This is like one of those judges who's famous for coming up with like creative sentencing.
Yes.
But it's just like, it's just enabling.
Yes.
Creative enabling.
Yeah. It's really, it's cutting out the middleman of being creative. They're just saying, well, you're in big trouble. Keep doing what you were doing.
Yeah.
You know that clip from the British show Brass Eye that's pretty famous? Where it's like a news clip where they launch a pedophile into space, but then they reveal that
we didn't want to happen.
Right? Yeah. I actually haven't seen the show, but I've seen that clip like a million times because people post it on Twitter every day. It's so funny.
We gotta watch that together. It's
I would love
fucking
to.
funny.
But
Very
I
funny.
found the sentencing of this movie very similar to that clip. It's like, wow, this man has proven a dangerous menace to kids. Let's put him in charge of all of these, like, underprivileged kids who need any kind of sustainable resource.
Was there any resolution on what happened with the little girl's parents? Because they were still around.
That's a great question. I don't believe there was.
She was just straight up kidnapped from her home.
She was kidnapped.
Like, it wasn't clearly, obviously, not a good situation she was in there. Many would say it was a horrible situation. And, but he still just straight up kidnapped her.
Yeah.
Like, lured her out of her home and took her off into the night.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dressed as an angel, snuck up at night outside her window and said, I'm an angel, come with me.
That was the one thing we didn't want to happen. I was wondering if the FBI was going to kill him when they came out.
I was hoping so bad he was about to like die in a hail of gunfire.
I know. That would have been so sick.
And then he goes to heaven, and it's exactly like he was telling them it was.
Yeah.
No.
Jesus has got in a hazmat suit. We have to test you for angel measles.
Let's rate it. Let's rate this iconic Christmas. You know what? We didn't really talk about Christmas a lot in this. in this episode.
Oh, right.
We mentioned it at the beginning, of course. I will say that, it doesn't really factor much into the plot, but this is a Christmas movie. This does fall on like several days before Christmas. Violet has a lot of anxiety about Christmas not being good this year because they've lost their parents.
And God, I think Christmas is going to be bad because Will and me are alone. So please make Christmas not so bad.
So, Will gives her the best Christmas ever, which is the unconscious body of a drugged 9-year-old.
Yeah. And being pursued by the FBI.
Yeah. And it does end on Christmas Day.
Yes, it
They're
does.
in the bar and they have the Christmas tree up.
That is beautiful. What should we rate then this iconic Christmas movie with a powerful, wholesome message?
It's very, very one of the scariest Christmas movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'll give it 12 out of 12 days of Christmas.
God bless. Yeah, this movie's way scarier than all those movies about, like, what if Santa was an alcoholic or whatever.
Yeah, I was saving. Yeah, what if Santa was like a serial killer? Is still not as scary as Kirk Cameron showing up outside your house dressed as an angel in the middle of the night, telling you
to lure
died.
your daughter. To lure. Yeah, telling
you're
you
dead.
Or,
Come with me.
Truly horrifying thought.
Psychically terrorizing children for their own good.
Yes.
And it was for their own good. It worked out the best for them in the end. So that was the right thing to do.
I would say that for me, this movie was a very beautiful, wholesome, powerful movie that taught me that going by my gut is a way better form of judgment than all these pathetic little bureaucrats telling me that, my child has to eat every day or, not be like around livestock or any of the things I want to do because hey, listen, I have the best intentions of them all because I know me, I trust me, so you can entrust your kids in my care. I'm gonna have to give this film a 10 out of 10 dead starlings because Salem's main chore around the pig farm is shooting starlings with a gun.
Yeah. Watching A Little Piece of Heaven, I was disturbed to hear that there was no TV in heaven, but then relieved to find out that there were tapes. There will be tapes in heaven.
Yeah.
So.
And if we finish chores early, we'll have a video surprise.
Ain't got no TV in heaven, but we got tapes.
I suppose it makes sense. They foresaw it then. There will be no regular television by the time you get to heaven.
Wow.
This movie was just as good as the first 2 times that I watched it. A real banger. It's about Christmas. It's about finding your real family in time for Christmas. It's about skirting the law in the name of your gut. And I'm going to have to give this 5 out of 5 cases of angel measles.
Ooh.
Which is Kirk and his family, what they had. They had angel measles. That's what he said.
Measles.
Another plandemic from Saint Fauci.
Yeah.
Saint Fauci.
It was developed on a
cloud.
On a cloud, a laboratory on a cloud. And there was a terrible accident because we are not free from oopsies in heaven. And that's just how it goes. Well, yeah, thank you everyone so much for listening, for possibly spending your Christmas day listening to Boys Bible Study. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to all of our gentle listeners.
Merry Kirkmas.
Merry Kirkmas to all who celebrate and to all a good night. If this is your first time listening, go to boysbiblestudy.com to hear all of our episodes that are free to the public. And if you really like what we do and you want to get double the episodes, go to patreon.com/boysbiblestudy. Subscribers at $5 a month or higher get access to our bonus episodes. And special shout outs to our patron saints at the $20 tier. Thank you for your generous support. Nicole, Marissa, Jeff, Jane, Kara, and Rhett. And our outro music is Oh My God by Mary. So from all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, we would like to say peace be with you.
And also with you, because you're dead.
And also with you, man. Can you dig it?
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day